it's obvious, but the ramifications are not obvious. Men are visual.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of these things that when I was trying to explain to the women what I was learning about how men are visual, what it actually means is the issue. Because women have heard men are visual, but you ask us what does that mean, and you kind of, I don't really know what that means. So ladies, hold on to your seats a little bit. I'm going to try to tell you what I heard about this. And it means, to say men are visual means two different things. The first thing is that even the most godly, devoted Christian husband can't not notice a woman who's dressed in a way that calls attention to a good figure. Can't not notice. Even if he chooses not to look, and we hope he chooses not to look, her existence on the planet is noted. I mean, one guy, he said, you know what? If I am in Home Depot minding my own business, I'm just there to get a power saw or something, and a woman who's dressed in a way that calls attention to a great figure walks in the door, he said, even if I want to honor God and honor my wife and honor that other woman, by the way, and I want to turn away until she passes, I'm always aware she's in there somewhere. All the guys are like, it's
true.
But that's the first thing that it means to say that guys are visual. The second thing that it means is even more unusual for us women. We just do not understand this at all. And that is that image that guy just saw of Home Depot girl could be burned into his brain and become part of what my husband calls a mental Rolodex.
Wow.
Almost like picture files on a computer. And these images of women, that are dressed to call their attention that way, it's almost like these images suddenly are, he's not thinking about it, and all of a sudden they pop up on the screen of his brain without warning. And these images come back, and he has to go, stop it. I don't want to be thinking about that. Take every thought captive out of reverence for Christ, right. Tear it down, don't think about it anymore. And 5 minutes later, bing, she could be back. And so that is one of these areas that we women don't realize. Guys are having to make these choices all the time in our culture that they don't want to have to make. They don't have to be tempted this way.
I really love the illustration that you and he were talking about this, and you brought up the Tom Cruise movie by Tom Cruise taking his shirt off, asking you, don't you have a mental Rolodex of that?
Yeah.
And your answer?
I knew you were going to bring that up. Let me describe it, because the way that he said it is, he said, I bet we are wired the same way, and let me prove it to you. He said, that movie we saw last week of Tom Cruise? I said, yes. He said, okay, you think he's an attractive man, right? Yeah. Okay. The next day after we've seen one of his movies, how many times will an image, a sort of a picture of Tom Cruise taking his shirt off or something, just sort of rise up in your head? How many times does that happen the next day? Never. And Jeff said, no, I must not be explaining myself correctly. You're just working at your desk, you're not doing anything sensual, and all of a sudden a sort of a movie of Tom Cruise taking his shirt off just sort of plays across the screen of your mind. How many times does that happen to you the next day? Never. I enjoy him when I see him, but he doesn't come back. And that's the difference, ladies, is that for our men, Home Depot girl comes back. And here's the key. You gotta understand this. She comes back even if he does not want her there. Men do not want to have these images in their brains. They're not supposed to have to be confronted with the stuff they're confronted with in our culture.
What does the woman have? If he has the visual pop-ups, what does she have?
Women have emotional pop-ups.
Explain how that is.
The analogy that we use is almost like the way that our brains process thoughts and emotions is almost like a computer screen. And think about it this way. A man's computer screen of his mind, he processes one thought at a time. He works on it and he clicks the little X and it goes away. And for a woman, it's like we've got 10 windows open all at once, and we're bouncing back and forth between them. And when my husband was writing the book with me and doing the focus groups, he came to me later and he said, it's almost like your system is infected with spyware or something. Because we have these thoughts and these concerns in addition to the day-to-day stuff of life. It's almost like we have these windows, these concerns pop up, and it's something that's bugging us, and we want to click the X and make it go away, and it just pops right back up again. And it's basically the idea for guys to realize that if you see your wife bring you something over and over, or I thought we dealt with that 2 weeks ago, or whatever it is, that for her, she can't just not think about it. That's the most common guy phrase, right? Don't think about it. She can't.
Yeah, or my biblical insight would be, get over it. That's not appropriate. That's what you're saying at that point.
I hate to tell you this. Yeah. I mean, really, for a woman to close those windows, that's sort of the terminology Jeff and I use at our house. In order for women to close those windows, we have to do something to deal with them. We have to take some action to resolve it. And if a guy will, instead of saying, just don't think about it, if he'll stop and instead say, well, okay, why don't you go ahead and deal with this if it's going to keep bothering you? Or how about I, as the man, do something to help you close the window? I mean, that's like major brownie points right there for the average husband.